Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, then, to the Bahrain International Circuits in, Bahrain. What is this? This is about the 7th or 8th round now. I forget which one this is. I'm in all sorts of, new surroundings now. I've got the PS5, I've got a new headset, I've got new controllers, I've got new menus. I am about as kerfuffled as you could possibly be. That was about the whitest sentence I've ever said. I apologize to everybody. But Hotspot, MMR Hotspot this time, on the call with you. Proud to represent the Monkey Mafia Racing brand in the comms booth. This is going to be such a great time. I do love doing this. What do we have here? What race is actually this? This is round 8. We are about at the halfway point of the season. Next 3 after this, Bahrain. Tonight, Brazil, Monaco, and then eventually Jeddah, followed by Austria, Qatar, the Netherlands, and Imola to round out the season. Here we are, beautiful night under the desert sky. I think this is, I don't necessarily speak for everybody. This has got to be one of the few tracks on schedule that I think everybody universally likes. This is one of those circuits that I think, just gets over well. Plenty of overtaking, good DRS zones when you do have them. It's got its difficult parts of the track, that part's for sure as well. No doubt about it. As our first car on track tonight, well, I thought it was going to be the Alpine of Reimer. It's actually going to be the Haas of Fallen Demon. I gotta say, this is the PS4 edition of this game. It does look so much better already. That onboard camera, it just looks so much better than the actual PS4 version did. Of course, I had the first-gen PS4. I bought it the year after it came out. It came with Uncharted 2, played it for about a day and a half, never touched that game again. I mean, listen, or it was the Uncharted bundle, it wasn't just 2. Yeah, I tried playing the whole thing. I'm not a big fan of the puzzle games, but just, it does look rather clean, doesn't it? Very good, has to be said. And this is actually more of like the TV broadcast camera as well. This isn't, straight over the top like we had before. This is actually a better camera. Let's see if it gives us any more angles or anything. I'm not entirely sure, but here we are then. Fallen Demon's going to be our first car around the track here. I gotta say, I like having this track as the season opener. I get it's logistical, but I think it would actually be great to have it towards the end of the season. We had that in 2020, I believe, and it worked very well. This was a great track here. Both the layouts, by the way, work great. Both layouts, I think, would actually work quite well as the season winds down. I think I wouldn't actually complain too much with having the season opener move back to Australia. This is in real life we're talking about, but well, it's Fallen Demon out on track first. Here he goes, starting his lap here. He'll be making his way towards the first corner as we get a yellow flag back there somewhere. Rides that curb on the exit. I tell you what, he's well overshot the corner. That part is absolutely true there. I was expecting him to start braking by the curb. He's actually taking it much deeper. Let's go on with Reimer now. Perhaps he'll put together a big lap here. He's going to start braking around the curb. There he is. Down to about first or second gear. As you can see, he's actually shifted up quite early to try and negate some of the wheel spin he's going to get through turns 2 and 3. This little DRS straight here, in towards the top of the hill at turn 4. Actually, you don't notice it initially. There is quite some elevation to this track. Not so much like jagged like you'd see Portimao, but it is definitely up and downhill, as we see Reimer here making his way through 5, 6, 7, and 8. Down the hill in towards, well, this is turn 8 as a matter of fact. Turn 8 it is. Beware of oversteer on the exit of the corner. Turns 9 and 10 then coming up. You're really going to start braking for turn 10. This tight left-hander right when you get into turn 9, right when you get to the apex of that corner. And if you place your car correctly, it actually turns up into a more of a straight braking zone, which is quite well, especially when you deal with having no ABS on. That is very helpful in that perspective. Through turn 11 now, up the hill through turn 12. Remember, in the last couple of games here, that was a big problem. You'd get a lot of oversteer if you were too hefty on the throttle. Now you could pretty much take it flat out. Before, you'd have to either ride 6th gear or shift into 7th gear quite early, or the back end of the car would come around very violently. Not the case anymore. Reimer down the hill through 14 and 15. Now he's going to be coming to a timed lap here. Fallen Demon, that time's going to be erased here quite quickly after he went off track. It is a 1:29.786. Very good lap then from Reimer. I'm sure that one's going to be quite competitive. Next up to the line, one of the two Ferrari drivers. It is going to be Shiraya Coleslaw to the line. What does he have in store? It's going to be provisional pole, 129.625. Actually puts about, was a tenth and a half. Back to Reimer then. That's a very good lap. Yep, 1.16. Mazda guy's gone third then. Fireballer's actually followed that one up. Good lap from Fireballer within that second so far. That's a pretty good time to have. Next up to the line is one of the Red Bull drivers. It's going to be Cynical. Misses out on pole by less than a tenth of a second. Very good lap from Cynical, I would definitely believe. He's going to be on pace for a very good result here today. Slayer Eyes, look at that lap. 4/100ths of a second. And then Lancey, not far behind. 129.421. Puts about 0.2 of a second back to the rest of the top five. And I tell you what, very, very closely competitive top five so far. That's going to make for some great racing. Quick story I want to touch on here for Reimer. We had another league ran last night. Sunday, actually, well, not last night. It was about, for us here in the eastern part of the world, Eastern Standard Time, it was about 3:30 in the afternoon. We had a race for the Jag F1 League, a league I also commentate. You can check those videos out on the channel in the playlist. Reimer at Saudi Arabia had a great race. Was taken out of the final corner. It was a drag race, side by side to the line, ended up losing that win by less than a tenth and a half. 0.118 was the final margin at the end of that. Hopefully that doesn't prey on the mind of Reimer, because he knows he probably should have had that win. To the credit of the other driver he was facing, it was just simply better ERS management, I'm afraid. Was at about 60 getting into the spoon section of Saudi Arabia, that final sector, and that's pretty much what did him in there. Meanwhile, Gazboy's actually put himself P6, and oh, by the way, less than 4.5 tenths behind Lancey at the moment. That's a very good lap from Gazboy. I think he's off to a great start here. Next to the line, one of the Alfa Romeos, I believe it is going to be George Mazda guy. Well, whoever it is, he's on the way into the pits now. Monkey Mafia is in the pits. Cynical's come around the line. I don't think Cynical will be improving. No, into the pits he goes. One of the Aston Martins coming through now, Gazboy as well, and then the other Alfa Romeo of Slayer Eyes on his way in here. So, only other driver out on track, it is Lancey, who at this period of time, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing here. He's only at about 50% of his energy store. Clearly, trying to conserve here, I would say. But I'm not sure he's going to get it saved up enough by the time he has to go back around and start. Thankfully, he's got clear track behind him, so there's nothing really saying he can't bank up the battery like that, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be coming into the pits here. And no, it looks like he's going to stay out and give this one a go. Either that or is he on low fuel, perhaps? I'm not entirely sure. Doesn't look as if he's trying this time round, has to be said. Got the Alpina light work on the way in, followed by the two McLarens coming to the line here. Caesar is going to put together a lap. Does not improve that time round. Caesar starting a timed lap here into the first corner he goes at about 60% battery. We'll go ahead and say this is going to be a timed lap from him. Currently 1.6 off the pace. See if he stays with it. The battery going down. Recharge light is not on. Through the DRS he goes. He'll peak at 189 miles an hour up the hill into turn 4. May have the trouble with the Ferrari ahead of him. Up through the gears he goes, down through this snaking section of Sector 2, 5, 6, and 7. Handles it quite well at the moment. Down the hill through turn 8. Let's see how he handles the oversteer on exit. None to be reported. Very nicely done there from Caesar. See what the timing line is when he comes up to the Sector 2 line exiting turn 12. I want to say this is a timed lap. It looks like one. He's using battery enough to make me believe it's a timed attempt. Again, currently resides 1.6 off the pace. Behind him, one of the two Haas drivers, I want to say Fallen Demon's going to be coming through here. He still has to put together a timed lap. He, remember, had that, went way deep into the first corner. He is actually about a quarter of a second better as Caesar so far. That'll move him up to P8. He'll leapfrog Beamer and take that 8th spot. I don't think he's going to get past Fireballer at the moment. We'll have to wait and see. Out of the final two corners he goes. On to low fuel now. He's pretty much timed this run to perfection. And 133.28. He'll actually go P7. Very good lap there. Improves by 0.7 of a second. Very well done from Caesar. Nice attempt there. Behind him, the Haas of Beamer has gone across the line. It doesn't look as if he's improved that much, if at all. Behind them, that was the AlphaTauri of DRR. How do you pronounce that? Rexon? It must be like rain or something like that. I have not a clue. Anyways, that was the other thing of this Jag F1 league that we participate in, me and Reimer. That is one of the most internationally diverse leagues I've ever seen. We've got Englishmen, we've got Belgians, we've got Algerians, for God's sakes. We've got, I believe, a couple of Dutch. Only 2 Americans, me and one other, as a matter of fact. Reimer's Canadian. Perhaps an Italian or 2 mixed in there. Again, I don't know how, like, accurate they are. People can just choose whatever nationality they want in these games, but it is a UK-based league, and it has to be said, there's a lot of names I actually can't pronounce. I'm quite glad to be back in a States-based league here, as these are names I actually know what to say, for the most part. It looks like one of the... it looks like the Aston Martin of Mini. Well, he's gone off. This is exiting turn 4. I think he's just gotten a little too hefty on the throttle, and he's spun around, hit the barriers on the inside. Well, this is about where the car went off, that being the Aston Martin of Gasboy. Thankfully for him, he's actually put together a pretty solid lap. Still resides P6 this time, within half a second, 4.5 tenths to be more precise, of the leader of Lancey. So that's a pretty solid lap. I think if you're, within half a second of Lancey, you're doing something pretty good. And that is the case for Gasboy, so I think he can... I don't want to say he'll comfortably have a top 10. I think he's got a fair shout for one, despite being out this early in the session. A couple of drivers coming through the final stages of the lap now. Shariah Coleslaw actually purple by 0.4 of a second through Sector 2. His teammate of Lancey coming around the line now. Let's see what Lancey, and it looks as if... Is he going to be starting one here? Yes, he is. So Shariah up next, and if he's improved by that much, he will be leapfrogging his teammate here. Exiting turn 15, down the pit straight now. To the line he goes, and Shariah Coleslaw, provisional pole, 129.243. Only puts about, well, less than 0.2 of a second back to Lancey, but that's still a good spot to be. I'm sure that Tifosi would love to have a Ferrari front row lockout here, and I'm sure Shariah Coleslaw and Lancey, both 2 very competitive drivers in their own rights, would love to have the opportunity to be side by side off the grid. It is a very far run into that first corner, and it's very wide as well. So those 2 Ferrari making the great Italian wall on the way into the first corner, that would definitely help the 2 drivers there maintain some position. We do have the Red Bull of Cynical making his way through the final stages of the lap now. I believe that's 1.7 tenths better through Sector 2. To the timing line he goes. It's not going to be pole, it's going to be P3. 129.439, improves by about 0.3 of a second. That leaves him less than 2 100ths back to Lancey for the second spot. So at the moment, 0.2 of a second separate the front 2 rows. Very competitive here. And meanwhile, Gasboy only now loses outside of that 0.6 of that half a second mark. Still 0.6 of a second. That's a pretty good spot to be. Next up behind him, Caesar on an outlap is about 0.4 of a second behind Gasboy. The only other driver not to break the 129s quite yet. I believe. Is that the case? Yeah. The only other driver not to be in the 129s so far is Caesar. But I tell you what, I've seen a good run from Caesar here so far. I do believe he could probably get into the top 5 here. We'll have to wait and see. Shariah into the pits now. You got the Alfa Romeo of Slayer Eyes behind them. Looks as if he's on his way. Got an Alpine coming out of the final corner. It's Reimer. Have to wait and see. At the moment, looks an okay lap. I'm not sure his best. But to the line is Reimer. Well, to hell with what I just said. 129.177. That's good enough for provisional pole. 5 minutes to go now. Less than a tenth separates himself from Shariah. 7 100ths of a second. That is an incredible gap to have that. Reimer has done well here. Hopefully he'll be able to get the car back round in time to put together one more, because I fear, unfortunately for him, that lap is going to be slightly vulnerable with the quality of the grid we've got going so far. Cynical making his way through the final stages of the lap. I would assume he's going to be coming into the pits here. Yes, he does. It didn't seem like he was on the best lap, and in he goes. Ray through the final stages of the corner now, and he's in as well. McLaren of Gab, in as well. Caesar's going to be starting one here. Let's go along with Caesar. Mine as well. Still the only driver not to break into the 129s, but I tell you what, he's not all that far off. 1.5 tenths is all he needs to make up from, being within that second. I think top 5 might be a bit of a challenge at the moment, because that gap from Gasboy's P6 to Slayer Eyes is about 0.4 of a second, so he really needs to make up about 5-6 tenths here if he wants to be within that top 5. We'll have to, even more than that. If he wants the top 5, P6, he needs about 5 tenths. We'll have to wait and see. Only 12 1,000ths faster through the first sector. So at the moment, okay. Again, there's not really much time you can make up through that first sector. It really does depend on the exits you have out of turns 2, 3, and 4. That is basically the entirety of the sector. You got the straight line speed into the first corner. You got the exits of 2 and 3. That's what gets a lot of people by surprise. And then it's a straight line speed up the hill into 4. And that's pretty much the entire sector. So we'd assume this car is going to come to life here in the middle sector, where downforce looks to be more prominent. To the line he goes, and he is now faster by 2.5 tenths, so this is kind of what we were expecting here. Let's see how much more he gains, or perhaps loses, down the straights here, in towards 14, 15, and then to the finish line. This looks a good lap. I think he'll have P6, but we'll have to wait and see how competitive it actually is. To the line is Caesar. I tell you what, 129.982, it does improve by about 3.5 tenths, about a tenth. I was going to say, not that far at all behind Gasboy. Unfortunately for Caesar, he is just outside. He is now within the 129s, and that is a very comfortable place to be. We'll have to wait and see if Fireballer and the rest can actually top that. I would assume a half a second for Beamer is going to be a lot to make up. Fireballer with only 3 tenths, I would expect him. He might be able to make that gap up. We'll see if he can crack the 129s. I'm confident he can. 2 minutes and 10 seconds remaining in the session now. Next around the line looks as if it's the AlphaTauri of Rain coming out of that final corner. Currently resides 3.7 tenths of a second off the lead. Behind him, the Red Bull, Monkey Mafia. Let's see what Monkey's got here. I'm excited to see Monkey only recently making his return to full-time F1 racing. Was a staple of the Midwest F1 League, and here he is making his own league, and I tell you what, it's really good to see him back out on track. Tell you what, through the first couple of corners, looks pretty comfortable, has to be said. As VTech has joined and then retired and then left. I'm not really sure what's happening there. Monkey Mafia through the first sector is a 29.2. What does the Alfa Romeo of Slayerized have through it? 29.1, so he is also a tenth slower, so that could be the case. At the moment, not a bad time from Monkey, though. We'll have to wait and see if he's able to make up any more time here through the final sector. Or through the final sector and a half here. DRS activated. And he's going to be at 190. By the time he gets in towards turn 11. Now, mind you, we were on board with, I think it was Reimer earlier, who was at 189, as Lancey, into the first driver, into the 128s. 128.895 puts now almost 3 tenths of a second back to Reimer, and you'd have to believe that's going to be the final attempt for Lancey today. He's done all he's needed to do. Monkey Mafia down the back straight now. Ahead of him, we've got the AlphaTauri of Rain. We've got one of the Williams. It's Fireballer on his way. And then the Alfa Romeo of, I want to say it's George Mazda guys just gone across the line. Monkey Mafia will get P12. 131.265. Not a bad lap. Competitive in this midfield here. I would assume if he can keep his nose clean during the race, that might actually be a pretty solid time. Who's going to be coming out to the lap now? Shiraya has just crossed the line. He's gone about 4 tenths faster at the moment. Wouldn't believe him to be on another timed lap here. However, someone who is that of Reimer. At the line is Cynical, and he does barely get it. And he's got the toe of the Aston Martin. It's going to be side by side into the first corner. Racing on a qualifying lap. Oh, I tell you what, Cynical's not going to like that. As far as Ray is concerned, he's 2.4 off the pace. And, well, there goes Cynical backing out of it. And, you know, I think in fairness to Ray, he'd believe in his opinion that he's got every right to a fast lap as Cynical here, but Cynical, I think, could have had a fair shout for pole, and I feel a steward report may be coming on later. You know, in my professional stewarding and casting opinion, I would say we might just be seeing a steward report later in the week. Reimer making his way through Sector 2 now. Behind him, we've got the Mercedes. Oh, who's that spun round there? Well, it's the AlphaTauri of Rain, who's perpendicular to the circuit. Thankfully, he's off the track, so that one's not going to hurt him. Looks as if Mini's not going to improve here. Around the final corner now is Fireballer. To the line he goes. I believe Slayerized is up next. Fireballer goes P8. Slayerized is making his way down the hill at the moment. It was George Mazda guy in front of him. Shariah Coleslaw to the line. Now, I tell you what, this looks a great lap here from Shariah. That he goes. He does not improve. Slower by 5/100ths. Next up is Slayerized. To the line he goes. He does not improve. Slower by 3.5 of a second. Behind him, it was Reimer on the timed lap. I believe maybe he improved a little bit, but not enough to take pole position. And I think that's going to be it here. Cynical has invalidated. His lap's over. Everybody else out on track is either finished or retiring. So, it will be Lancey on pole. Reimer second. Shariah Coleslaw third. Cynical fourth. And you have to feel for Cynical here. I do think he probably could have had a good shout for pole here, but unfortunately it all gets thrown out the way. Ray, I will say, did improve a little bit. He's actually gone P8, nearly getting into the 129s. So, not bad, but Cynical won't care about that. I think as far as he's concerned, he'll feel as if he's just been robbed of pole. But we'll never know. He's got a lot of room into that first corner on the first lap to try and prove me otherwise, but we'll have to wait and see. Starting lineup then for the Bahrain Grand Prix will be Lancey on pole by about 0.3 of a second over Reimer. Third for Shariah, good result for the Ferrari so far. Cynical fourth, Slayerized fifth. Caesar in sixth, great result for him. It's a fourth row lockout for the Aston Martins of Gasboy and Ray. Ninth Fireballer, 10th is Gab, 11th Mini, 12th is Mazda Guy, 13th Beamer. 14th is Monkey, 15th is Rain, Fallen Demon, P16, Lightwork, P17. Unfortunately for VTech, did not get the chance to put down a timed lap. So, pretty close here, within the top 7 drivers, actually top 8, all of them, within a second of Lancey, barring, 7/100ths of a second for Ray. I think it's going to be one hell of a Grand Prix here. Stick with us. So here we are then, ladies and gentlemen. We're back here in Bahrain. Looks as if we've got the issue perhaps fixed. I don't actually know. I don't know. I don't really know what that glitch was. I haven't seen that glitch since 2022. Everybody gets to the grid. Somebody, I think the problem is somebody just didn't load in. And then we had 18 drivers sat there waiting for the lights to turn on. As it turns out, the person in the control booth had a stroke, perhaps. I don't know. Tim Cook finally gave up waving flags and wanted to press buttons. He was trying to do a dramatic pause, perhaps. Dumbass. Anyways, so we've got 10 seconds to go here. We're going to have the formation lap again, for sure. I would assume by rule... that's actually a good question. We didn't officially start the race, did we? I would assume the rule, perhaps, is that you have to start on the same tire. Could be wrong. Again, we didn't actually start the session. I think the rule when it comes into play is that if we have a restart and the race has started, you must be on the same tire compound. But we never did officially start the race. All we did was do the formation lap. That's where the confusion is at. Because, naturally that could be perhaps a problem. If somebody puts on the wrong tires. Yeah, I'm not sure. But nevertheless, here we are. We're back. Yeah. Happy to be here. Gotta say, we've had some great times in the Monkey Mafia Esports League. We've had some great times already this season. This is the inaugural season. We've seen a lot of great racing. We've seen a lot of chaos. We've seen some great wheel-to-wheel action. And only being halfway through the season, I know something we haven't done yet. We haven't looked at the driver and constructor championships yet. So as we look at the driver standing, Shariah Coleslaw atop, 170. The two McLarens actually occupied the second and third place. 144 for Gab and 133 for Caesar. Caesar's actually tied for third with Reimer at 133. Lancey at 132 in fifth, although he's technically classified as a reserve. Cynical in P6, 123. Slayerized 112. Fireballer 108. Gasboy 82. Mazda Guy 78. Edwin 61. Ray 49. Mini 32. Osmanian Devil 29. Beamer 25. Palmer, who's, I guess, I don't know, listed as reserve, 25. Lightwork 21. A-Dub 14. Monkey Mafia 9. Unfortunately for Fallen Demon and Gonzalez, they have yet to score this season. We look at the standings after Abu Dhabi. McLaren atop, 277. Ferrari 196, actually only set 6 points ahead of Alfa Romeo. at 190, Alpine 187, Red Bull 170, 163 for Aston Martin, 119 for Williams, 79 for Mercedes, Haas at 57, AlphaTauri at 30. So can we now have a look at the tire strategies? Well, we've actually had a bit of a change here. Lancey's actually decided to go to the hards. Before, we did only have 2 drivers. Of course, I don't remember at this point who they were, but we did only have 2 drivers start the race last time, or thinking to start the race on the hard tires. This time we have 3, so something somewhere along the line has changed in that setting, and the change is Lancey. He is now found himself starting on the hard tires. And again, I think, should that early safety car come out there within the first, 10 laps or so, that's what I would classify as early. I think being on the mediums is still the better option. We've got 17 cars. That's one hell of a drag race in the first corner. Acceleration, acceleration, acceleration. On the brakes. Hope you don't hit anybody. Front wings perhaps will go a mess everywhere. So, I think planning on not having a safety car, I think that's the mistake here. Unless perhaps, Lancey, Cynical and Ray Ray, the 3 that are on the hards at this point, unless they think perhaps they can, turn it into a 2-stop strategy, and go hard, medium, medium, perhaps like that. Or, because I would doubt we would get a full stint of say that safety car comes in early. Highly doubt the mediums last anywhere more than like 15 laps. So I think for their sake, if they want to pull off the 1-stop, that safety car would really have to be around the halfway point of the Grand Prix, which is lap 15, lap 16, I think is where they would hope it would be. But the odds of a safety car happening at that point, do get drastically lower. Obviously, it's going to, there's a fair bit of it happening here off the start. But even off the start is going to be way too early, because then at that point, it's going to be too long for the hard tires. I mean, you could go hard and then go soft at the end. Well, geez, I tell you what, she's probably said that before, has to be said. That is an option. As long as you make the switch to the required compound, or at least to a different compound. Oh, as it looks like Rain is one of the 2 AlphaTauri have gone off there towards the back. That was quite the spinneroonie into the thing. So this time, as we can see, Reimer is really angled across the nose of Lancey here. And again, Reimer's goal is going to be to have this inside line in towards that first corner. Lancey is going to have a lot of defending to do here, now being on the off-compounded tires. The lights are going to be turning on here in Bahrain. Hopefully, there we are, 2, 3, 4, and eventually 5. And for the 8th time this season, they are off. I would argue that Lancey did get the better start. He spun the tires just a little bit there. Shariah's going to try it. Round the outside. Reimer is tucked in behind the 2 Ferraris. I believe that's a Haas who has taken a advertising board out towards the back. Lancey does stay ahead. Shariah Coleslaw gets ahead. Reimer's fallen back down to 3rd, and we've got Caesar dropping down the order here. He's side by side with Gasboy exiting now the 3rd corner, making their way down the straight towards turn 4. Everything looks okay past the Grosjean corner, and in towards the end of Sector 1. The Ferraris have taken the top 2 spots. Meanwhile, Reimer, I would argue, has not gotten a great start, although he's held position for the most part. He's only lost 1. So I would say he's probably all right there. We got the 2 Aston Martins almost side by side there. A little bit of a lock-up from Caesar, and ahead of him, Cynical got a big wiggle of oversteer that time, as the 2 Ferraris within 0.3 of a second of each other here. Reimer not far behind, although Reimer very much under pressure from the Alfa Romeo of Slayer Eyes behind, less than 0.2 of a second. And oh, by the way, Reimer still trying his best to get back up to speed here. Aston Martin of, I believe it was Gasboy, had a little bit of a peek down to the inside. Nothing really to worry about as far as the McLaren is concerned, but mostly through the opening lap here. Not a lot of switching about. A little bit of shuffling in the top 5. Shariah up 1. Slayerized up 1. Reimer and Cynical down 1 each. Lightwork up 7. So he must have had a great jump off the line. Either that or he's just simply stayed out of trouble. Monkey Mafia down 3. Fireball down 3. And that's really about all the moving that's happened. as they finish out the first lap here. It is Lancey, the Dutchman, who has, when he's been on track this season, has very much dominated. And he'll find the first corner here in the lead. But his teammate is Shariah down to the inside. And I tell you what, Shariah is going to get him. Those being on the medium tires was almost certainly going to have the pace advantage. And as soon as I compliment the Dutchman, he falls back to second place, of course, to no fault of his own. He's just been sheerly outpaced there by his teammate on the faster compound tires. Reimer, meanwhile, I think has done really well here. He's, in a position so where if the two Ferraris get together or a mistake happens, he's there to capitalize. But he's been careful, and that's really important there into the first corner. He hasn't been too gutsy. He hasn't gone, really risky into that corner. He hasn't made any sort of significant dive, although here he is. There is Slayer Eyes down to the inside. So we have a yellow flag in the back. It's Gab who's gone around, and we've got, I believe, a couple cars off here. The virtual safety car on track. We've got front wing everywhere going through turn 9, and that is George Mazdaguy, who's retired down to the inside of the track. I believe he's retired on track and not actually crashed. There is at least 3 or 4 front wings there off at the apex of turn 9. Turn 8, rather, and that's why the virtual safety car has come out. And I'm just trying to see who has actually gotten the worst of it. Monkey Mafia off at the back here. Doesn't look much for him. Yeah, there's Rain's front wing is gone. Looks as if VTech, it doesn't look as if he's got damage, but you never know. Still only the virtual safety car. I'm still just trying to see if anybody's picked up any more damage than what we can initially see. And I'm going to say that's about it. It's only Rain in the AlphaTauri. And it was George Mazdaguy who was, I believe, the culprits of this VSC here. So that leaves the two Ferraris out here. Now, Slayer Eyes, we were going along with the incident there at turn 8, but I believe Slayer Eyes did, in fact, get that position in time before the virtual safety car has come out. He's stayed ahead of Reimer here. I would assume if, perhaps he didn't get the position fairly, he'd be giving it back. All the while, the two Ferraris ahead have gotten a massively good jump. Oh, what's wrong with Caesar? Oh, big off towards the back. 2 cars DNF'd. Front wings everywhere. And something has happened with the McLaren of Caesar or something. The safety car out on track. Something has gone very much wrong as Lightwork and Ray went clean into each other. And a conundrum off the start of the virtual safety car here, the ending of it. And the field is now neutralized, and we've got 2 cars who will not find the end of the Grand Prix. Now, we didn't really get a good look at what happened there. We saw the McLaren in the straight. Looked as if he was going quite slowly. And suddenly the Aston Martin and the Alpine kind of got together. And that spelled the end of that. So now it goes over to pit strategy. Who does what here? I wouldn't expect we're going to see many takers this time by. Perhaps if they need a wing change. That would be, I would assume, it. But Shariah Coleslaw will maintain the lead of the Grand Prix here. Does he stop? Does anyone attempt to undercut the rest of the grid? Lancey had a think, stays out. Reimer stays out as well, and I think Reimer was having a serious look at that one. Aston Martin and Gasboy on the way in. Fireballer really ducked out at the last minute. But Gasboy on his way in. Rain is on his way in. Looks like it's going to be a double stack for the AlphaTauris, and Gab is going to be on his way in as well. So only 3 takers of the pit lane this time. 4, rather. 4 takers of the pit lane. Gasboy, which I'm not sure why he stopped. Perhaps was it planned. We do know Rain needs the front wing. VTech in after him, and he's on the medium tires. Perhaps is this just strategical here? No, it looks like... Is the crew getting a front wing together? No, it's just going to be a plain old stop here from VTech. He will lose the spot to Gab with the double stack with his teammate. That's going to be about it for pit road. Safety car on track here. We'll let it sort itself out. We'll get back to you. So the safety car will find its way in at the end of this lap. Shariah Coleslaw here took the lead from Lancey, exiting the second and third corner after the first go-round. And so Shariah, at this moment in time, still being on the medium compound tires, I would assume it's going to be better than the hard still. Big news here, I think Slayerized and Reimer were really having a good battle there. It kind of got cut short via the safety car that ended up coming out, actually the virtual safety car that came out before that. But those two, really in a good battle, and I guess it was, from the odd looks of it, a genuine brake check by one of the McLarens that resulted in Ray and Lightwork not finishing the session. Back on a green flag racing here. Shariah is ducked down to the inside, doesn't appear to be any interested in giving a tow to his teammates, as Lancey actually really under pressure here from Slayerized. Slayer trying it around the outside through the first corner. Being that he's on the medium tires, I would assume he might have a good advantage. At the moment, Reimer trying to check back into this battle, but Cynical was actually breathing down his neck there for quite a bit as they head in towards turn 4. Reimer's going to try to look down the inside of Slayerized, nothing there. But at the moment, all stays the same, all stays quiet. After the safety car comes in, here's a look again at the gains and losses of our drivers so far today. As, Rain is actually retired, that being off track, exiting turn 4, about to be on his way into turn 5. At the moment, it's just virtual safety car. And it looks like that's all it's going to stay. I'm not sure how he's gone off then. That was slightly an odd incident. He was off to the outside of turn 4. Typically you see it on the inside where you see the car, light up the rear tires and spin round and hit the inside barrier. He's gone at the outside of the track that time. So slightly odd. But virtual safety car out on track. Shariah Coleslaw will maintain his lead here for at least a little bit. Hardly had... I don't want to say we've hardly had any overtaking, but we haven't had DRS for that long. So, in fairness, there's still a lot of racing left to be done here. Green flag back in the air. Lancey trying to follow in the footsteps of his teammate here. 0.6 of a second. Not necessarily closing, but not necessarily getting farther apart either. That'd be good for the Dutchman then. Here is Cynical. Within now 0.5 on Reimer. Oh, I hate having this TV pod cam with the damn telemetry, off center like that. I don't have much OCD. That is hurting, though, has to be said. But Cynical, 0.4 of a second back to Reimer, as it looks as if the two Ferraris have actually gotten quite close to each other. Caesar's gone off. This time, he's not gone into the Grosjean corner. He's actually gone to the outside of it, I think where we saw Nikita Mazepin go off in 2021. As I believe something's happened here. Fireballer is either struggling or he's really having to defend here from Beamer, because this is now a 3-second gap between the top 5 and the rest of the grid here, which is being, that second pack of cars being led by Fireballer. So, not rightly sure what the holdup is there, but either way, that's the case. As they head down the middle straight now, I'd say. I wouldn't call it the back straight. I would say that's probably it coming out of the top of the hill at turn 12. 13, rather. Through turn 11, in towards 12. The grid pretty evenly spaced here. Cynical within 0.4 of a second of Reimer. See who gets better eggs out of the corner. Cynical took a more sharp apex that time. He took it slightly earlier, had to be or later perhaps. Out of turn 14 through 15 they go. Down the pit straight. The two Ferraris in synchronization here. Down the straight they go. Let's see how aggressive Lancey gets. He's going to check down to the inside. Shariah, doesn't... I would say half-hearted defensive maneuver there from Shariah. I don't think he was expecting Lancey to really have a look down to the inside, but he did. I think they're quite content where they are. And just defending the top 2. As the top 5 make their way up through turn 4, Fireballer again kind of far behind here, and Beamer's going to be under pressure from both Mini and Gasboy in towards turn 4, but nothing's going to come out of it so far, unless you are Mini, who really is under pressure from Gasboy here as they go down the hill through the rest of Sector 2. It's as if that battle's going to be on pause for the time being. Again, the top 5 at the moment within 2 seconds of each other. This is great racing here. Nice and clean. It's Monkey Mafia and VTech battling it out. Going through turn 8 in towards turn 9 now. Down this straight they go up in towards turn 11 and 12. Looks like Reimer really under pressure here from Cynical as they go up through 11 and 12. 0.2 of a second now in closing. It's about 0.3 last time by. I tell you what, Reimer looks like he's slightly struggling here. He's gone wide at a 13. Cynical, is he going to have a look down to the inside? I wouldn't expect him to do it now. Perhaps if he gets better exit. Oh, one of the McLarens has gone off, and Caesar is into the wall and out. Virtual safety car. No, full safety car on track. Oh, and something happened there with Monkey Mafia because he was quite slow leaving the scene of the crime. Caesar, has he perhaps just, has contact been made, or has he lost the car on the acceleration? Again, you don't see it as much anymore, but with worn tires, I guess it's not that uncommon to see, where the back end just gets away from you like that, and, well, that'll mark our 5th retired car of the day, and we're down to 12. We do have a couple drivers coming in. Fireballer has come in. Beamer has come in as well. Fresh hards for Fireballer and Beamer. Softs for Mini and Monkey. Slightly a bold decision, that has to be said. So we're only about to come around to our 10th lap here in just a little bit. Not even halfway. We've had 2 safety cars, a virtual safety car on top of it. 5 DNFs. It's a shame, really, because we just simply haven't had enough time for any of these battles to develop here. And once again, we're under the neutralization of the Aston Martin safety car. Shariah Coleslaw leads the grid. I'll step aside again. Well, safety car is going to be on its way in. And we've had a change in host somewhere along the line. It looks as if Slayer Eyes has either lagged out or left, one of the two. Gazboy on the relatively fresh hard tires took him under the last safety car. Is going to be leading the grid to green here as we are back underway here in Bahrain. VTEC is right up against the gearbox then of the Aston Martin. It looks like the McLaren of Gab wanted to get away, hasn't gotten away quite as well. VTEC had a look down to the inside, nothing quite there to make anything happen. Fireballer, though, on the fresh hards, I would look at him. The 2 drivers on the softs battling it out here is Mini and Monkey side by side through the second corner. VTEC now has a peek down to the inside of Gazboy. Again, nothing quite there. And for the time being, again, let's go ahead and hope those drivers who are, you know, the leaders get away cleanly here. Shariah's gotten around Monkey up to 7th. He will, I believe, inherit the lead of the Grand Prix here once more of these cars come in, although, again, you have to believe Fireballer and Beamer, the only other 2 drivers who have pit now on the hard tires recently, I'm not quite sure they're going to have to stop again here. As they make their way out of turn 10 in towards turn 11. The grid, nice single file line like a good group of preschoolers. Reimer making his way up the hill through turn 11. Cynical here, currently tailing the grid, but at least he doesn't have to worry about cars behind him trying to pressure. He's got track ahead of him, and he's got drivers ahead of him. Reimer's not gotten away well at a 13. Lancey down to the inside. Oh, Lancey's going to outbrake him into the corner. This one's going to be close. Yes, he does, but Lancey's gone deep. Reimer's had been held up. He had the Ferrari ahead of him, and Cynical goes into the back. Well, that one got sketchy there for just a moment. Cynical definitely made contact with the rear end of the Alpine. Hopefully, for his sake, no damage was done. Fireballer will get around Gab. A nice braking maneuver in towards that first corner. And for the time being, once again, everybody's going to kind of stay ahead of each other quite nicely. VTEC down to the inside. Once again, has a little bit of a look, getting at least putting some pressure on Gazboy here. Simply the presence of a driver down to your inside like that will put pressure on you. And I think that's what VTEC's trying to do. VTEC, you know, there have been times where we've seen him at the top of the grid. There have been times we've seen him at the tail end of the grid. Either way, there is one irrefutable fact. He is quite a veteran here of league racing, as Beamer has actually quite had some oversteer there coming out of turn 8. He's going to be under pressure from Mini and Shariah. Shariah, which round the outside, not going to quite have the look round Mini. I would assume those softs are still going to be a better tire for at least a couple of more laps here. Fireballer with DRS is now within a 10th and a half of VTEC, right up against the tail end of the AlphaTauri here. Tries the outside. VTEC defends well. Fireballer's going to have to tuck back in line. Remember, 3-lap-old hards for Fireballer. I'm assuming he's may not have to stop again. Now a quarter of a second here. Battery not being used. He's doing it on sheer straight line speed. Peaked at about 189 miles an hour. Beamer looks as if he's gotten around Mini. Shariah, at the moment, under pressure from his teammate here. We've got DRS enabled. They're not going to get it until they exit turn 3. As Lancey goes fastest, 1:33.366. Fastest lap of the session so far. Fireballer still not really in position to make anything happen. Down to the inside of Mini is Shariah. He'll have the outside through 2 and 3. He's going to have to switch back here. It looks like Gab has not gotten away too well. Shariah is going to use every inch of the track he can. Is he going to get ahead of the Mercedes here? Yes, he will, as it looks like Beamer and Gab have gotten together. Meanwhile, VTEC is taking the lead of the Grand Prix atop. Look at this side-by-side battle here through this downhill Sector 2. That is going to be quite a risky place to go side-by-side. All the while, that does hold up the secondary Ferrari of Lancey, who is now under pressure from Monkey Mafia and the other Red Bull. More importantly, I think more of a rival in this battle for what will eventually be the lead of the Grand Prix here, of that of Cynical. Lancey down to the inside. He gets Mini in towards turn 10 for the time being. Cynical's gotten around his teammate, but still, Mini's hanging around the outside. He's got DRS. Lancey to the inside on the mediums. I'm assuming at this point probably the better tire. There goes Cynical. Down to the inside on Mini. And yeah, is he going to get it? He's going to hold on to it. They're going to be side by side up the hill. Cynical gets bumped out of the way. And Mini's going to hold position for now. Oh, that one got really close there. All the while, Fireballer has taken the second spot. Cynical now getting around Mini. VTEC has taken the lead. That was on their way into turn 4. And now, is VTEC on his way in? Yes, VTEC is on his way into the pits. Has he got damage of some sort? He's only on 9-lap-old hard tires. That feels like a tremendously odd time to pit. As well, the Red Bull of Monkey Mafia on his way in. Unfortunately for Monkey, he's retired. And mediums going on here for VTEC. So VTEC believes he could probably get to the end on the mediums. He's gone for the extra stop and now fresh medium tires. That might not be a bad idea. But he's going to have a lot of ground to make up now. That part is for sure. Oh! Beamer has gotten really out of shape out of the curb of turn 4. Now finds himself side by side with Shariah, and he will lose the spot. That was almost very treacherous for Shariah. Beamer had rode the curb coming off the 4th corner in towards turn 5. The outside curb, it looked as if the car either bottomed out or he got a lot of oversteer. The back end of the car really got out of shape. Was able to hold on to it, but he ended up losing the spot. But could have been a lot worse then for the Haas. Cue the Jaws music. You got Lancey in pursuit now, as Gab trying to hold off Cynical here. Oh, Gab's not gone very well in towards turn 11. Cynical's going to get way up the inside, and he's going to take that spot rather with ease. Top 3 now separated by about 4 seconds. Yeah, about 3.5. Close enough. Lancey 0.4 of a second behind the Haas here of Beamer. Through 14 and 15 they go. Whoever gets a better exit here. You don't think of it that much, but 14, very crucial corner when it comes to exit speed. Because then that lines you up for this huge run down in the first corner. As it looks here, Beamer is going to try to look to the inside of Shariah into the first corner. Lancey, all he can do is sit and watch, and hopefully he doesn't get engulfed in anything that may come out of it. No, it does look as if Shariah is going to be able to hold the spot. Fair attempt there from Beamer. He's now going to have a look to the outside. Shariah defends the inside. He's going to send Beamer way up the inside. That's going to be a very poorly taken corner there from Beamer as he shoots way up the racetrack, gets in the way of Lancey. Oh, that was contact, and Beamer's off. A's around, and he's out. Well, I tell you what, yeah, I'm not really sure what's happened there. Side by side is Reimer with Gab G. Lancey, I think, is a very aware enough driver to not do anything like that on purpose or negligent enough. Give him the benefit of the doubt. We were on board with the Ferrari, and all we saw was the Haas behind him at that point. We saw the hand go up in the air from the virtual Ferrari driver, and the Haas had gone round. And in fairness, he almost kept it together, but took one too many hits to the inside barriers, and it's all over. We've had 7 cars not finish this session. We're down to 10. We're only about halfway through. Slayerized and Mini side by side, this time going through 13 and 14. Wow, tell you what, A lot of looseness there from Slayer Eyes, nearly getting together, and Lancey is going to go around the outside of his teammate, and going to take the third spot. Oh, look at the dive from Cynical, my God! He's gone way in there for it, and I think Cynical does realize he's slightly gone a bit ballsy there, and he's recognized that he's gotten into Shariah. He's unfairly taken the spot, and he's given it back, and hats off to Cynical, I think, if that's what he's done. Good sportsmanship there from him. You love to see that sort of thing. Hopefully Shariah doesn't have any damage, because, you know, if he doesn't, we can assume that this battle is just going to keep going on, and, you know, there's not going to be any worry for steward reports. But, again, we were talking about this last week, as Slayer Eyes is going to try to get around Mini here. I tell you what, Mini looks to be very much struggling on these soft tires. Has to be said, if you even have that kind of inkling that an incident happens, you need to get it right out of your head so quickly. If that sort of thing preys on your mind, and you keep thinking about it, and it keeps making those little glimpses in your heads of, is there something I could have done better, that takes away from the time you're focused about the race, and more mistakes could breed from that. In fact, they will. Well, Cynical's back within half a second of Shariah here. Cynical's going to, you know, assume he's done the right thing and given Shariah the spot back, and he's going to feel that as if he's free to race the Ferrari from here on out. I'd say that's pretty fair to me. Don't see many complaints. 0.2 of a second here between Lancey and Gazboy. He's going to look for it down to the inside. And I think he's going to get this one well before they get to the first corner. Very nicely done from Lancey. As Gab is on his way in. 13-lap old hards. So we assume Gazboy is going to be coming in soon then. 13 laps is the furthest we've seen going on the hard tires. We saw VTEC pitted around 9 laps on them, which I thought was very strange why he pitted that, what seemed to be early. But, you know, maybe that's the case. Maybe the hards just don't last long. You know, could be. We'll have to wait and see. I think Gazboy here, when he pits, is going to be a real indication of how long you can go on these hard tires. I think he is going to be the marker for the rest of the grid. He's going to be the one to watch here, because when he pits, that's going to tell everybody else around him, especially those on those hard tires, when you can expect the degradation to get too much. Because, you know, if it wasn't bad, Gazboy would just continue on to the end of the Grand Prix. But I think at this point it's safe to say he's going to have to pit again. So Gazboy, his pit stop is going to have some huge implications here on the rest of the grid. And if you're Fireballer here, you know, a lap older tires than your counterparts behind you, maybe something to look out for. We'll have to wait and see. Top three, again, slightly separated from each other here. Gazboy starting to fall off the tail end of Lancey here, as Lancey's got some huge pace. Shariah within half a second and closing with the aid of DRS. In towards the first corner they go. Shariah down to the inside. And yes, he will get the Aston Martin, and now that's going to leave Cynical to try to get round the Aston Martin here. Heavy over the inside curb. DRS activated for the Red Bull. Activated for the Aston Martin as well. Tell you what, Gazboy's actually managing some okay pace. He managed to get back within 0.3 of a second of Shariah that time. Still not really enough to challenge the Ferrari driver here. It does start to look like he is going to be quite struggling here. And someone else is going to be struggling is that of Cynical, who now has to wait for an opportune time to get around Gazboy. Of course, Gazboy's taking the long strategy here. He's going to want to hold on to these tires, hold on to this track position as much as he can. That's going to hinder Cynical a lot, because Cynical needs to get around him here if he wants to be in contention at the end of the Grand Prix. 0.4 of a second now. Oh, and there goes Gazboy. Well, thankfully, he hasn't crashed out of the race. He has crashed. And he's going to go off-roading here. Thankfully, he's, you know, gone off track, gotten out of the way. Although we do have an AlphaTauri in pursuit. Oi, I tell you what, that one looked a bit scary, has to be said. If we get a better camera angle here, we'll see, you know, just how much damage he may have. Doesn't actually look like he's got any. Perhaps he's looking at some rear wing damage. That could be the case. So 14 laps is how long it took Gazboy to make a clinical mistake on the hard tires. Tell you what, that doesn't leave a lot of room for the drivers on the hards right now. Fireballer, we can assume, is on the hot seat here. Because, you know, let's be real, he's not exactly losing time to Lancey here. Maybe a couple hundredths of a second here and there, but for the most part, he has stayed relatively the same. Of course, as I say that, he's made up about 0.2 of a second. But either way, I'm just wondering where the crossover point actually is, because again, they've pit at the same time, haven't they? You know, roughly. One lap after the other. Lancey's gone from hard to mediums, Fireballer's gone from medium to hard. And my question is going to be here, I tell you what, Lancey went way down to the inside. I'm not really sure what that was. He's trying to break the toe of his teammate. That's slightly odd. But I'm just wondering how much better off, if the mediums are still better off than the hards, or if the hards are gonna dip back under. Because, you know, we think of the crossover point in times, we get that screen. You know, with the time, the line, the graph. I'm thinking we could even potentially have almost 2 crossover points here. We'll have the initial one. Well, that wouldn't make any sense, would it? Because obviously the mediums are going to be the better tire to start with. Those 11-lap-old hard tires, I'm assuming, are starting to feel some wear to them, but I would also think that the medium tires behind as well also having some wear. As you can see now, Shariah really in pursuit of Lancey. Lancey's only made up about 0.1 of a second in the last lap. 0.4 of a second here between them. Bit of a lock-up there from the Dutchman this time. Does actually gain about 0.3 of a second so far through the second sector, and more. So maybe are the mediums still the better tire? Has the crossover point happened yet? As we have VTech side by side there with Slayer Eyes going through turn 8. Shame I missed that move. That was actually looked to be a good one, has to be said. Lots of thinking to do here for the grid. Do we see a final stop towards the end here? You know, it's going to be 20-some-odd laps for everybody on track right now that pit at that most recent safety car. It's going to be one hell of a decision to make. Let's see if anybody chooses to make a decision. Got 9 laps to go this time by. Cynical on his way in. Soft tires going on. That is a bold call from Cynical. He has now entered the thoughts of the rest of the top 4 above him. He's only going to lose about 2 spots here. He'll lose it to VTech and Slayerized. And he'll exit the pits roughly 20... Yeah, I was going to say 27 seconds. Yeah, 27 seconds behind the leader of Fireball. Of course, he had some... It was... You know, I wouldn't say he was all that far away from him, but he wasn't within DRS range then. Oh, I wonder what's being thought about right now with the leaders here. They've got some thinking to do now. Cynical's gone to the softs, and we know those softs are actually quite quick in the early stages. Will they be able to last the 8.5 laps they have to go here? That's going to be another question. Because we saw... Mini and Monkey Mafia as well. That, you know, they were on the softs there from the start of the safety car, which we thought was a wild decision, as a matter of fact. And so here goes Cynical now. Let's see what kind of times he's running. Obviously, this next one is going to be the one to pay attention to here. Shariah now 0.5 second behind his teammate. Lancey is now within 2 seconds of Fireballer, although it has to be said, if he is closing, he's not really doing it quick enough, is he? Lancey, I tell you what, it's going to be difficult here, because Lancey's got a choice to make. He's either got to push and try to get to the lead, or he's got to allow his teammate past here, because I'm gonna go ahead and assume that those hard tires are going to be better right quickly here. Lancey's got some incredible pace to him. One of the most talented drivers, sim racing drivers I've seen, you know, one of the best drivers I've had the pleasure to commentate on. Gasboy's gone 132, 116 on, well, I would say fresh softs. That's not even the case. 3-lap-old softs. But, I mean, you can't argue with facts. You can't argue with science most of the time. And I'm going to go ahead and say that perhaps are we going to be looking at Lancey losing the position to Shiraya, although I will say Lancey is still making time to Fireballer. In fact, he's trimmed about half a second since the beginning of the lap here. And he's still counting. I tell you what, this is going to be one hell of a race to the finish here, because all three of these drivers now, almost within DRS range of each other. Assume the top two of Lancey and Fireballer start battling for the lead. We're going to get to the point where Shiraya's going to enter the mix, and we're going to have a all-out slugfest for the final spot. Fireballer does well, goes way down to the inside, tries to break the toe. Lancey doesn't have DRS at the moment. In fact, does Shiraya even have DRS? Well, yes, he does. Only the one penalty so far, that being Mini having the 3 seconds. Once again, here's your look at tires. Shiraya having DRS to his teammate once again. Cynical 131.730. If I'm not mistaken, that's the fastest lap by a lot. Nearly 2 seconds. A clean second over Mini. Oh, I tell you what, I think Cynical may have made that decision to pit. Now that I look at it, I think he's made it just a little bit too late. Because I think you're at the point now where if you're in this top 3, it is going to be about track position. Forget tire wear. You just got to worry about what's ahead of you. As now Lancey almost within DRS range. Actually, in fact, is within DRS range. A Fireballer ahead. Shiraya within DRS range of his teammate here. Cynical actually getting around Slayerized in towards turn 8. That looked a great move. But I think we're getting to the point where pitting for these guys is simply going to be out the window. You know, I think we're past the point to where Cynical could catch up if they did pit. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was a really good idea from Cynical. I just think the execution may have been slightly off. I think, you know, maybe if he had another set of mediums, it would have been better to stop maybe 3-4 laps earlier and make the other kind of drivers think, hey, is it worth stopping? I think what he's done there, he's gone for the softs, thinking that the drivers ahead of him would pit, and I don't think they will. So we've got 6 laps to go here. Shiraya pressuring his teammate of Lancey for the second spot. Now, Lancey has made up a lot of time on Fireballer, but it has to be said, not yet in striking range. I think it's going to take a little bit longer, especially with Shiraya in pursuit here. If we look at the telemetry, yeah, well, I mean, they're all pretty even, has to be said. Shiraya's actually got the best at about 20%. Fireballer next up 16, Lancey at 11. So Lancey using his battery a little bit more than the drivers around him. But again, we have seen Lancey's making up time, so that would make sense. Fireballer way down to the inside of the circuit, doing everything he can to break the toe. He's not actually lost all that much ground. Reimer about 5.5 seconds behind, hoping for a miracle here, has to be said. Reimer down 2 positions since the start of the race. Has to be said, though, a top 5 is still a good day, in my opinion. I think, at least in his opinion, he would have thought he could have had a podium here. Perhaps even a win. But you got to take what you can get, and I think that's still a very good result for Reimer. Been on the cusp of winning, it feels like a lot of times now, just hasn't really come together in the right places for Reimer. And it looks like, once again, that's going to be the situation today, unless something incredibly ridiculous happens. As now, Lancey down to the inside of Fireballer. This is the battle for the lead here. Shiraya Coleslaw in pursuit. Both drivers go wide through the first corner. Oh, Shiraya, oh, he's gotten into the back of Fireballer. Well, it doesn't look as if he's gotten any damage. Fireballer will not have DRS. Lancey was still technically behind him at the activation zone, or the detection zone, rather. And at the activation point, Fireballer was then at that point behind the Ferrari. I tell you what, I don't think the battle's over with here. Lancey is going to have to conserve his energy store, and Shiraya is going to have to work to get around the Williams here. There goes Shiraya looking around the outside. Bit of a lock up there from one of the two ahead of him. Let's see who gets the better exit of the corner. Fireballer's got the battery here. He's using it. I think he might be starting to panic. There's still a lot of time left in this race. 0.3 of a second. And I tell you what, despite Lancey being on the medium tires, what we would assume is, probably the worst tire compound at this point, definitely doesn't look it. Fireballer, again, being on a lap older tires than either of the two drivers, but I'm just wondering, how much that lap matters, especially to his fellow competitor on the hards of Shariah. Doesn't look to be that much at the moment. Shariah is not really closing in on Fireballer. In fact, Fireballer, I'd say, is actually doing quite well here. Hasn't been phased by this overtake, and now he's going to have DRS down the pit straight. Got a lot of time here. Lancey blocks the inside. Fireballer takes the outside. Shariah in pursuit. Fireballer is ahead at the braking zone. Does he keep the lead? Shariah falls in pursuit of the Williams. Oh, I tell you what, they're pretty even on the getaway there. Shariah's had to check up because the two drivers ahead of him. Lancey down to the inside. Into turn 4 they go. Lancey, I think, has the lead at this point. Yes, he does. Shariah down to the inside. He's going to have the inside of Fireballer. Contact being made. And again, and again. Massive contact between these two. Fireballer getting into the inside tire of Shariah. Oh, goodness me, and he's taking the Alpine with him. Tempers perhaps flaring there for Fireballer. In all fairness, the overtake from Shariah didn't really look that bad. Definitely some tough racing there to be had. And they were side by side. And Fireballer's hooked it into the fence there. And the yellow flag is out. I'm hoping it's too late for a safety car. That would be an incredible... Oh, Jesus. Well, Gab's nearly gone straight into the Williams there. We're down to 9. Yeah, I don't think Fireballer's going to be too happy about that one. More or less because he's just lost a great opportunity to win the Grand Prix today. I think, the three of them were racing really tough. But it just, to first glance, there, I could be wrong. Again, I've been wrong before, I'll admit it. I once thought I was wrong, but, I was right. Initial glance didn't look like all that much was wrong. I think as far as Shariah is concerned, he had every right. He saw Lancey and Fireballer go side by side into the corner. I think as far as Shariah, he's had every right and every, I think from a driver's perspective, expectation to try to find the gap. And he's just gotten into the Williams, and it's all gone away then. And it looks like Lancey might be on his way to yet another win here. Oh, I'm just having a peek at the Discord here because, I'm going to be quite honest with you. I don't know. Tough. Really tough. Lancey on pace for, at the moment, to take his 5th win of the season. Shariah Coleslaw, if he does battle his teammate, it will be his 2nd win of the season. Took it back in week 5 in Australia. Remember, Lancey swept the first 4 rounds. Monza, Singapore, Austin, and Silverstone. Didn't participate in a couple of the last 3 Grand Prix here. He's back at Bahrain with 2 laps to go. On his way to perhaps another win. But let's see if Shariah battles him. Let's see if Shariah gives him a fight. Yeah, hopefully he does. I mean, you'd much rather see the two drivers fight than lay down for the other. Because I tell you what, it's within 0.6 of a second now, almost. Yeah, there it is. 0.6 of a second, and perhaps closing between the two. Into the corner. I tell you what, Lancey's... lockups look a lot worse than they actually are as far as the game is concerned. In real life, those tires are flat-spotted. They're done. Absolutely squared. In the game, not that big of a deal. Has to be said. 0.6 of a second in closing here. DRS for Shariah. Lap and a half to go now. Lancey has saved up a little bit of battery, up to about 24%. Shariah in position. Oh, Lancey's had a slide there. Oh, I tell you what, those medium tires, the degradation surely catching up to him now. The Tifosi are either going to be in for one hell of a finish here, a 1-2. But I tell you what, at the moment, it looks as if Lancey really wants this win, and he's defending Shariah Coleslaw. Heavy on the brakes. I'm hoping Reimer didn't take too much damage from getting into the Williams there. Way down to the pit wall. Final lap of the Grand Prix underway. The two Ferraris in synchronization once more. Down to the first corner. Shariah's going to go for it. Yeah, he is. Really there. Has to lock up. Has to really avoid contact with the inside of his teammate. Proper defending there from Lancey. He's rather parked it on the apex and forced Shariah to take the risky way down to the inside. And has forced Shariah to back off as to not hit the car. So, good defending from Lancey. No complaints with that. 3.5 tenths here. I tell you what, the door's still open for Shariah. He could have it if he wants it. I think, again, you realize Lancey is, he's a reserve driver by technicality. He's raced a lot. He's not full-time. So I think this win would go a lot in the way of Shariah. But I think that doesn't mean Lancey's going to give it to him. As neither of the drivers saving any energy whatsoever as they making their way up through 11, 12, and 13 here for the final time. We'll have to wait and see. 0.3 of a second here. Whoever gets the better exit out of 13 is really going to have it here. Oh, I tell you what, Lancey had it okay. Shariah was about to have it okay, but he got loose on the way out. And as the two Ferraris make their way to 14 and 15, it has to be said, it's been a great race for the both of them. And Lancey's going to win today's Grand Prix. My headset's cut out there. I'm not rightly sure what that's about. Lancey taking the win, Shariah second, Reimer third. Well, I tell you what, that was a close battle there. Reimer nearly lost it to VTEC. 2.5 tenths the gap. And it looks like that's going to be all it is here today. Slayer Eyes is going to take P6, Gab P7, most likely Gazboy 8th and Mini 9th. And next week in the Monkey Mafia Esports Series, we head to Brazil, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache for the 9th round of the season. Hotspot, it's been a pleasure joining you this time out. We'll see you next time.